The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.
Or alcove, however you like to describe it. Pretty straightforward. I don't have any other questions or comments, but I will defer to members of Legal Affairs. Councilor Tossi, do you have any questions or comments? Anything to add?
No, not at all.
Thank you. Councilor Pauline Cormier?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Nothing to add. Any members of the council? Councilor David Cormier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank Sergeant Robichaud for quickly looking into this and, getting it taken care of for us. So it's much appreciated. Thank you.
You. Anyone else in the council? Seeing none, I will go to the public. Is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 47-24? For the second time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to petition 47-24? And for the third and final time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 47-24? Seeing none, Mr. President, I will declare this public hearing closed.
Very well. We have, I think, a minute before we can start the second public hearing.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I have 6:50.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will proceed. This is another public hearing of the Legal Affairs Committee. This is on petition C93. Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the City Council vote to amend Chapter 20, Article 3, Section 20-18 of the Leominster City Ordinance as follows. Chapter 20, Article 3, Section 20-18 of the revised ordinance entitled Cash Security by deleting the provision in its entirety and inserting the following in its place. No person shall install any utility or other private connection into any public utility, including water and sewer connections and or renewals, drainage, drilling, and all other types of excavation unless such person has delivered to the city a cash security in the sum of $15,000 for the faithful performance of such work. He may execute and make good any defects in materials or workmanship which may appear in the utility trench on account of work done by said insured contractor, and to remunerate the city and any person connected to such work for loss of or damage occurring in consequences of any act done under any permit granted such contractor. The $15,000 cash security will be held for a 2-year guarantee period. 2 years after the completion of the last permit work, a permittee can request the Department of Public Works for release of the security. If all permit obligations have been met, the security will be returned in its entirety with interest. We had this was given regular course on June 10th, and we also had asked for and received a referral on C93 from the DPW. This is dated to Ms. Maribel Perez, Assistant City Clerk, 25 West Street, Leominster, Massachusetts. And again, it begins with the petition and goes on to say, Dear Maribel, the Leominster Department of Public Works has reviewed communication C-93. The DPW approves the communication as submitted. Please let us know if you have any questions. Sincerely, Raymond Racine, DPW Director. I spoke with Jake Fleming as well from the Water Department's business agent. And basically, he advised me that the bond amount had been $5,000 for quite some time. And obviously, $5,000 won't get you as far as it did at one time. So the folks down at DPW would feel much more comfortable increasing this bond amount to $15,000. So let me go to members of my committee, see if they have any questions or comments. Mr. Robert Tossi.
No, I mean, it looks fine. I mean, it was 5 to 15. I think nowadays is probably a better number, 15.
Thank you, sir. Pauline Cormier.
I have no questions or comments.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other members of the council? Councilor Frida.
Yeah. This is something that's really been needed for a long time. I know a number of years ago, we were having a lot of sewer connections and a lot of utility work. And not long after that, there were ruts in the road and couldn't get people to come back. is actually a major issue throughout the state. I know survey was done for all communities, and I know at that time our DPW director felt we didn't have a problem, but we did have a problem. I think, the more money that we can get to address that, if they don't go back and fix it, then certainly something warranted.
Thank you, Councilor Frida. Are there any other councilors that care to opine on petition C93? Seeing none, let me go back to the audience. Is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition C-93? For the second time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to petition C-93? And for the third and final time, is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to petition C-93? Seeing none, Mr. President, I will declare this public hearing closed.
Great timing. It's 6:55. Just in time for the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for any member of the audience to speak on a matter specifically listed on the council agenda. Speakers will be asked to come to the microphone and state their formal name and address, along with identifying the specific item or items they wish to address. Each speaker is respectfully asked to keep their comments within a 2-minute time frame. The council will not be responding or answering any questions. However, at the discretion of the council president, clarification may be given. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council this evening in the public forum? And a second time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council on an agenda item in the public forum? And for a third and final time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council on an agenda item in the public forum? Seeing none, I will declare the public forum closed. We will begin the regular meeting in just 4 minutes.
It should say correction. C88? Yeah, it should say, under C88 should say correction in today's date.
I don't think they realize it. Maybe they think about it already. And just increasing the amount. Argue much, but better than that. Inflation, yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly, yeah. Anyway, it was funny how different people.
Guys, it's probably.
Yeah, it's a little tight.
25 cents.
That's
It's nice though.
Holland that did that.
Right all day.
It'll work.
You know, if you drive, ask everybody, just take the change out of your pocket and see how much. It may be fucking half of. That's
On the beach.
Second meeting in July. Carlin's people are on vacation. Guy, his engineer won't be available next week even. Yeah, so I think we have one more meeting for that here, hopefully.
Send out even.
I've been on geotech. So they had me on cycling 10 days. Trying to get us out. So it was so damn hot. I said, you stay out of the yard. This was done this weekend. It's domestic.
Like one
neighborhood finance. It's like year before covered. Everybody's different. My sister-in-law, which
I guess as we get older.
I think, she says she still gets a little.
Sad. I wouldn't be with it.
Yeah.
Said everything.
It's 7 o'clock. We're going to begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Public, which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with a roll call of the councilors in attendance, starting with Councilor David Cormier,
Present.
Councilor Pauline Cormier,
Present.
Councilor Arndinger,
Present.
Councilor Angelini,
Present.
Councilor Tossi,
Present.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr,
Present.
Councilor Robbins,
Present.
Councilor Frida, and I shall be recorded as present. We have all 9 councilors in attendance. Does the chairwoman of records have a report?
I do, Mr. President, and unless I see any other requests for further time, I have reviewed the meeting minutes from May 28th and June 10th. I've reviewed the edits from those and finding them to be in good order, I'd ask that they be placed on file.
Okay, unless there's an objection, and I see 2 hands up. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Thank you very much. I had sent edits through the chair to the Ways and Means chair. I had sent edits on both, and I got the May minutes back revised, but I haven't gotten the June 10th minutes back revised. Send them, Maribel, because I didn't get them. I didn't. Okay.
I reviewed both sets with the edits this afternoon, so.
I'll double check.
All right, Councilor Frida, I saw your hand.
Just one quick edit I just noticed tonight on adjournment on the June 10th. Motion carried by a vote of 8-3. I don't think so.
No, that couldn't happen. Perhaps that was, does anybody have a memory? Sounds like it might have been 6-3. That was on the June 10th. All right. So, Madam Chairwoman, what did you want to do? So we're going to place May 28 on file with no objection, right, from anybody? And then on June 10, what would you like to do about that?
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr, do you have?
I don't have them. I just checked. I double checked again. My email, I didn't have them back.
Okay, then I would ask that the May 28th minutes be placed on file and we continue the June 10th minutes until the next meeting.
All right, very well. That may be done. All right, moving on to communications from the mayor, starting with C94. DJ Mazzarella, mayor, requested the appropriation of $180,000 be made to the school transportation account and the same to be transferred from the non-contributory retirement account. This is referred to the chairman of finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the calendar, regular course.
Very well. C94 has been given regular course. Moving on to C95, Dean J. Mazzarella, mayor, requested an appropriation of $25,800 be made to the property valuation account and the same to be transferred from other finance expense account. This is referred to the chairman of finance.
First time on the calendar, regular course.
Very well. C95 has been given regular course. Moving on to appointments. C96, Dean J. Mazzarella, mayor, requests the appointment of the following: Housing Authority, term to expire April 15th, 2029. Denise Avaldi, 105 Chapman Place, Leominster, Mass. Disability Commission, term to expire April 15th, 2027. Angela Thomas, 310 Leggett Hill Road, Leominster, Mass. These are referred to the chairwoman of Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to ask that these be given regular course and that we schedule interviews with both individuals at our next meeting at, I'm going to propose 6:45.
Okay, that may be done. Moving on to petitions, first time on the calendar. 49-24, Paula L. Deacon, Superintendent, Leominster Public Schools, requested at the June 3rd, 2024 school committee meeting. The committee respectfully requested that the Leominster City Council consider increasing their yearly compensation to align with other school committees in Massachusetts. The agenda indicates finance, but I'm going to assign this to the Legal Affairs Chairman, Councilor Angelini. It's an ordinance change, and that's the reason behind my assignment. Obviously, this will be given regular course, but I would slight update or a small update. I had some discussions today with Mr. Chapdelaine and Mr. Kurland from Mr. TV. We're hoping to be back in our chambers for the second meeting of July of this year. So I'm going to ask Mr. Chairman that you not schedule this yet for a public hearing. What I'm going to try to avoid is having this is a public hearing that could certainly be continued. And when the legal notice goes out for the public hearing, I'd like it to go out for the chambers so we don't get into a situation where the public hearing is advertised for this location, but it's continued to the City Hall. There's no legal preclusion from doing that, but I think it would be better for the public to be sort of concerted in our effort, as well as the fact that there's no real rush on this because it wouldn't go into effect until the next set of school committee people are elected. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to say, well, let's hold off on a public hearing for now. All right. Calendar again. Tonight, I'll just be given regular course. Yes, Councilor Frida.
Just curious why the letter came from Chris Silverman. I understand it's on Paula Deacon's letterhead. It's unusual for a superintendent to be asking for an increase for the school committee. And it's respectfully requested that we consider. I'd like to see the minutes from that meeting to show. I would assume they took a vote. If they took a vote, I think we need to know whether it's a unanimous vote or not, whether there was a discussion. And I think we should amend this to show the rest of it so people know that. I mean, the last line says the committee currently receives a yearly stipend of $2,000 and would request that the amount be increased to $10,000. I think the public should see that on this agenda.
Okay, let me take those one at a time. The reason behind why it came to us the way it did, I have no idea. I think asking for the minutes of that meeting is a good idea. And I would ask that our assistant clerk reach out and obtain those. And if you would like to move to amend the petition to include that language, I'm guessing you're going to be able to get a second. We can vote on it.
I would. I'd make the motion that we add the committee currently receives a yearly stipend of $2,000 and we request that amount be increased to $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm just, first of all, I think the public should know that. But the other issue is that they're looking to align with other school committees in Massachusetts. So I'm assuming somebody did some research to come up with what other school committees are getting. I know a lot of them around here don't get anything. I mean, you can go to Cambridge and say it's $45,000, but.
Okay, all right.
That's my motion.
That's your motion. I'll treat Councilor Robbins' hand as discussion on the motion.
I have a discussion on.
Okay, fine. Okay, all right. So we have a motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilor Robbins.
Thank you. To Councilor Frida's point, if there is some information on comparable school committee compensations, can we get that information if somebody's already done that research? Because I think it would be.
We'll ask the assistant clerk to specifically not only request the minutes of that meeting, but also any data that they developed relative to other school committees' compensations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else before we vote? Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Through the chair to the legal affairs chair. I would also imagine that for the public hearing, you would ask the superintendent to come down and discuss this, right, or present it.
How long is the superintendent?
Her last day is the 28th, but we have the new superintendents are already working.
The new superintendent?
That'd be fine. I mean, yeah.
Fine.
Okay.
We
schedule a public hearing. We'll make a note to do that. All right. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please recognize your usual manner. I'm sorry, did you have a?
That's all right. I was late putting my hand up. Do we think this should probably be joint and referred to the Committee on Schools as well? I don't know who that is.
I'll give some thought to that. But for this point, I think we're just going to stick with this. That's okay.
Even sure who it is.
I'll tell you in a second. All right. Well, I'll take that under advisement. But for the meantime, we're gonna vote on the motion to amend. All those in favor, please recognize usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, the motion carries. The petition is amended, and I think we can now move on to 50-24. Gregory C. Chapdelaine, purchasing agent, and Melanie Michaels, school business manager, City of Leominster, request to allow purchasing agent to enter into 2 separate contracts for educational software for the school department. These are used directly in student curriculum, and this is referred to the chairman of finance.
First time on the calendar, Mr. President, regular course.
Very well. 50-24 has been given regular course. Moving on to matters before the city council, we're going to start with the financial report. Is the chairman ready to report?
Yes, Mr. President, we began the fiscal year our free cash was certified. Sorry, I'll start there. Free cash was certified at $14,469,131 to date, and including the appropriations that are on the calendar for tonight, if approved, we will have spent $13,773,741.25, which will leave us a balance in free cash of $695,389.75. We started the fiscal year on July 1st, 2023. The stabilization fund had $21,785,513.54. We have earned interest in the amount of $527,140.76. The entire amount borrowed this year has been already paid back, and that leaves us a balance of $22,312,654.30. And that is a financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll now move on to matters before finance, starting with C-83.
C-83, Dean J. Mazzarella Mayor requested an appropriation of $775,000 be made to the health insurance expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. I did have a conversation today with the comptroller, and she is, they're respectfully requesting this money. It's due to increased claims in this current year, and so we need to settle this before the end of the fiscal year so that we have enough money to cover all of our expenses. The breakdown was health insurance $665,000 and retired insurance $110,000, which totals that $775,000. So obviously these are obligations that we have, and it would be my recommendation that we grant C-83, and I'll ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini. You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-83. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-83, please recognize in the usual manner. C-83 has been passed by a vote of 9-0. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, order that the sum of $775,000 be made to the health insurance expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please indicate by saying yay.
Yay.
Anybody opposed? The order is adopted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to C-84.
C-84, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an appropriation of $75,000 be made to the legal expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. I also had a conversation with the comptroller today about this as well. She just indicated to me that it has been an unusually busy year. There's been a lot of stuff that has come before the city, in which we needed to seek legal opinions to make sure that we were doing things correctly. And so we need to make sure that we have enough money in place to pay all of our bills by the end of the fiscal year. So this appropriation would do that, and it would be my recommendation that we grant C-84, and I'll ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
Councilor Angelini.
I'll make it unanimous, Mr. President.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-84. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Frida.
Yes, although I understand it's been a busy year and legally, but that there was no breakdown as to what that 75,000 was for. I did ask the comptroller's office last week for a breakdown of that, and I hadn't received it. So she was out the day I called.
She mentioned to me that you had requested that. I can't remember the last time we saw legal bills. I think it was before our city clerk was not working here full time, but I can ask her for the latest legal bills and look and try to see. Usually they email to us, so I can try to look and see when the last time was we had gotten some and through what date it was, and I can ask for them from that date through current. But other than that, I think we've all received legal bills, periodically, every month maybe. But I'll try to get the latest because I haven't seen them in a bit either. So
do we know what the majority of that 75,000 is for?
I do not know. I think it's just there's in general, all the stuff that's been coming through, just the general expenses, which are higher than normal this year. So, but I'll find out. I'll ask her. I know she's aware that we're looking for it. I'll ask her to get them to us.
Should we consider giving this further time until we have an idea what we're paying for?
I can ask members of my
I
committee.
understand your committee already supported it, but
Right. I personally, I'm fine with it. I mean, I don't think it's going to change much. We have an obligation to pay it, but we certainly should know what we spent it on, and we'll get that. But unless anybody wants to change, I'm fine with granting C-84.
Anybody else have anything before we move forward? So, Mr. Chairman, you'll ask for copies of the most recent bills.
That's correct. I believe the comptroller was already trying to get all those collected. Okay. Yeah.
All right. All set, Counselor? Okay. All in favor of granting C-84, please recognize the usual manner. By a vote of 8-1. C-84 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President. Order that the sum of $75,000 be made to the legal expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please indicate by saying yay.
Yay.
Anybody opposed? 8-1, the order has been adopted. Thank you. Moving on to C-85.
C-85, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that an appropriation of $375,000 be made to the rubbish account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. With my discussion today with the comptroller, as anyone can imagine, our trash was a little, the tonnage was a little bit more than normal this year. Probably because of the flood. A lot of people were putting a lot of waterlogged items out at the road. Even though we had those dumpsters at the site at Doyle Field, which collected tons and tons and tons of stuff, there was still a lot of stuff that got put out at the road. And also, this was the first year the first fiscal year in which we have, the program allows for mattresses to be picked up as well. So we had a lot of those. I think probably a lot of them that were in basements that got waterlogged as well. I know I've seen a lot of them at the dump site when I was there, and I'm sure just as many, if not more, got put out at the road. So that's the reason we just had a very high volume of trash. And also, she notes that the contract was agreed to after the current budget was approved. So along with the increase plus the additional tonnage and expenses, probably due to the flood, after all that occurred, we were short. So it would be my recommendation that we fulfill this obligation to get enough money in there to pay all our expenses through the end of the fiscal year. And it would be my recommendation that we grant C-85, and I'll ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier,
I agree.
Councilor Angelini.
Support meeting our obligation with the rubbish removal.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-85. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Through the chair, the finance chair, can you confirm that the flood related, all of the rubbish collection at Doyle Field, those additional pickups and everything, can you confirm that that's in the 375?
Yeah.
And then I would wonder if that would come out of any flood remediation money that the city might get back.
I can ask. Yeah, I would think that all those dumpsters that were at
Right.
Doyle were documented, and
Oh,
it's probably going to be maybe part of our disaster recovery. But I will find out. Yeah.
Great.
can
I'm
find-
just curious if they're in this 375 or if they're going to get paid with separate grant money.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah, you're welcome. I will find out.
Anyone else? Okay. All those in favor of granting C-85, please recognize the usual manner. C-85 has been granted by a vote of 9-0. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, order that the sum of $375,000 be made to the rubbish account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there anything further? All those in favor of adopting the order, please indicate by saying yay. Yay. Anybody opposed? By a vote of 9-0, C-85. The order on C-85 has been adopted. Moving on to C-86.
C-86, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an appropriation of $45,000 be made to the Medicare insurance account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. I did have a conversation today with the comptroller about this. She just simply stated that this amount that was due to Medicare just simply came in higher than they had projected. This is, I believe she said, the second year that it happened. They tried to be a little bit conservative with it, but she might look to up it in future fiscal years so that it'll be a little bit more in line with what we really spend. But in the meantime, we do once again have this obligation before the end of the year to make sure we have enough money to handle our expenses. And it would be my recommendation that we grant C-86, and I'll ask you to check with members of my committee.
Very well. Councilor Pauline Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini.
I agree as well.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-86. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Frida?
Just amend that to the 45,000.
I noticed that, and
Yeah, you mentioned that the last time.
I meant to, yeah, I think this time the decimal got moved, but we didn't add another zero. So if you want to make an official amendment, we can do that.
Is that a motion, Councilor Frida, to amend it to $45,000? Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second that.
Councilor David Cormier, a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, please recognize your usual manner. Okay, C-86 has been amended to $45,000. I take it your recommendation, your committee stands?
Correct. Basically, what we're doing is just adding another zero after the comma, and it'll be
Fixing the typo.
that recommendation stands. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any discussion on the amended communication rather? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-86 as amended, please indicate in the usual manner. By a vote of 9-0, C-86 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, order that the sum of $45,000 be made to the Medicare insurance account, same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request to adopt the order. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please indicate by saying yay.
Yay.
Anyone opposed? The order is adopted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to C87.
C-87, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an appropriation of $50,000 be made to the Montechusett Recovery Center out of the mayor's capital expense line in the general fund, the same amount to be transferred from the opioid stabilization fund. Basically, what we are doing here is we have another organization that is looking for some funding to help with the opioid crisis in our region. And we have a letter here, from the mayor requesting this. I can read some parts of this organization's letter as well, if anybody would like. The city's financial support using the opioid stabilization funds, abatement funds, has been vital to the operations of Montechusett Recovery Center, which is the acronym MRC, and the many Leominster residents with opioid use disorder that we have provided free services to over the past months. In the next 6 months, MRC is expanding its community support service in an attempt to better meet the volume of individuals seeking support. This will necessitate hiring several new staff members. Additionally, it will be necessary to supply each with the required equipment to effectively conduct their work, which is computers and cell phones, etc., as well as increased software use, client license fees from our electronics health record provider. In working towards independent financial sustainability, this community support services expansion is essential for our agency to meet the needs of those in our community who struggle with OUD and other substance use and mental health disorders. As discussed with you on 5/24, the Montechusett Recovery Foundation Corp's Board, MRF, respectfully requests a continued funding grant of $50,000 in abatement funds toward these ends. We sincerely thank Michelle Nato, the City Council, and the entire City of Leominster for this opportunity of continued support. Sincerely, Matthew B. Wright. So obviously these funds have been set aside for these exact purposes, and it would be my recommendation that we grant C-87, and I'll ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini.
I'm in agreement.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-87. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Frida?
I don't know if we can do it, but is there a way to find out if other communities are also funding this Montechusett Recovery Center as well?
I can certainly ask.
Some of the opioid money is being distributed in lump sums with a regional approach.
Mhm.
And I know we gave some, was it to Gamma?
Gamma, yep.
So it'd be interesting to see how much support they have from other communities as well.
I'd be happy to ask if we can obtain, a copy of their funding sources, if, from other communities that, I can do that. I can see if they would provide that to us. Absolutely.
Anyone else? Councilor Oettinger.
Just a comment, the opioid situation is something that, I think we all have to deal with. But I agree with Councilor Frida. This is an outside organization and we really don't have any control over how they spend their money. But I'm looking at this requested of the $50,000, about $42,000 is going for a vehicle.
No, not this one. The
Not
next
this
one.
one?
Not the next one.
Oh, it's next
The
one.
next
Sorry,
one,
I'm
yeah.
looking at the wrong page.
There's two,
I
yeah.
apologize.
That's okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All set, Councilor?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of granting C-87, please recognize the usual manner. By a vote of 9-0, C-87 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, ordered that the sum of $50,000 be made to the Montechusett Recovery Center out of the mayor's capital expense line in the general fund, the same amount to be transferred from the opioid stabilization fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please indicate by saying yay.
Yay.
Anybody opposed? The order is adopted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to C88.
C-88. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this as originally proposed, and then I'm going to ask for a motion, and I'm going to read the new language that they sent to us today. So it originally said C-88, Dean J. Mazzarella Mayor requested an appropriation of $50,000 be made to the police department's expense account / out of the mayor's capital expense line in the general fund, the same amount to be transferred from the opioid stabilization fund. And I'm going to ask that we amend this to say, Dean J. Mazzarella Mayor requested an appropriation of $50,000 be made for police department equipment / out of the police capital expense line in the general fund, the same amount to be transferred from the opioid stabilization fund. So I would ask if somebody, Mr. President, if somebody wants to second that.
Okay, so Councilor Angelini's made the motion. Does somebody want to second Councilor Angelini's? Councilor Robbins is seconding. Is there any discussion on the motion to amend? Seeing none, all those in favor of amending the communication, please indicate in the usual manner. By a vote of 9-0, the communication has been amended. Are you ready to proceed, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. President. So we have a letter here from Chief Aaron Kennedy. This is, well, it's actually on the chief's letterhead, but it's from John Frere, the captain. This is regarding the opioid funds for the police department. Mr. Mayor, the Leominster Police Department is requesting $50,000 in opioid funds to be used for the following purposes. 1, vehicle, a small to medium-sized crew cab pickup truck with seating for 5 to include car seat, accessible seating, and tonneau cover. The purpose of this vehicle is for our outreach substance abuse clinician to be able to transport clients to and from treatment shelters or services. The pickup truck with a tonneau cover was selected due to the ability to separate by means of a positive barrier belongings and personal items from the passenger section of the cab. This is for personal safety reasons to include preventing exposure to contaminated belongings. This is a normal civilian-style vehicle that will have no police lights and limited marking to limit the client's exposure to the stigmas associated with seeking this type of assistance. This purchase is estimated to be roughly $42,000. 2, Narcan, for the purpose of larger quantities of Narcan to have on hand. This would be for the clinician to bring the following, to follow up appointments and have on hand for community events. This request for $3,000 will allow for the initial purchase and resupply of inventory as needed. 3, promotional items for the purchase of a tent and branded tablecloth, mobile projector and screen, and other informational educational supplies for distribution that are geared toward public opioid education and training. This request for $5,000 will cover both the initial purchase as well as the resupply of inventory as needed. Respectfully, Captain John Frere, Leominster Police Department. So I guess I'm going to talk about the vehicle, which is the bulk of this expense. I did have a discussion today with the police chief, and he told me that this vehicle is going to be used, obviously, to patrol some of the areas of the city. It is even going up and down the rail trail with it. When they find someone who appears to be, maybe there's a tent sort of situation with a lot of personal items and belongings that are found, they want to bring that person in and get them in this vehicle, get them some help. They collect up all those belongings because in most cases, that's all this person owns. And obviously, some of these people in the situation they're in, those belongings don't have a lot of, cleanliness. They're worried about all kinds of things, bed bugs, lice, and just anything that could be in bedding, clothing on someone that has been in that kind of a living situation. And if you put all those items inside of a regular vehicle and there's a problem with that kind of filth, you're looking at decontamination of a vehicle and all those sorts of things, foul odors. There'd be issues with trying to decontaminate a vehicle, whereas if they could put these items in the bed of a vehicle, it's a little bit easier for them to wash. And also just the pickup truck is just more convenient to transport all this stuff in the first place. So that is the reason for this type of vehicle. Clearly, they're going to use it as well to transport these individuals back and forth. And anytime they need to move their belongings, they can put them in the back of the vehicle. So that was the reasoning for this. And it would be my recommendation that we grant C-88. And I'll ask you to poll members of my committee.
Very well. Councilor Pauline Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini.
And I just want to note too that there's absolutely zero sales tax attached to that quote. Saving some money there. I'll make it unanimous.
Very well. You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-88, and I'd ask if there's any further discussion. Councilor Frida.
Actually, it's not really a discussion, but the way that was broken down is the way we should be getting everything. Because with the budget next year and finances the way they might be, we might want to cut $10,000 out of a request, and we don't know what we could be cutting if we don't know what a $75,000 or a $700,000 request is. They should all be. We used to get them broken down like that at one point, so we knew everything that was being asked for, and we could make comment or cut or just agree. So I think that was done the right way. So,
All set, Councilor? Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-88, please recognize in the usual manner. C-88 has been granted by a vote of 9-0 as amended. Is the chairman ready to?
The
move
order?
for an order?
Yep. Ordered that the sum of $50,000 be made for police department equipment / out of the police capital expense line in the general fund, the same amount to be transferred from the opioid stabilization. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please indicate by saying yay.
Yay.
Anyone opposed? The order is adopted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to C-89.
C-89, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $5,500 be made to the Health Department clerk account, the same amount to be transferred from the collective bargaining account. Basically, the current clerk in there that has been there for a number of years is retiring. I believe her last day is the end of this week. So they were in a situation where they brought in a replacement, and they are having them overlap so that there can be some cross-training there for a nice, easier, warm transition. So they had some extra money in the collective bargaining account and are choosing to take it out of there so that they can pay these two salaries simultaneously, which is not the norm, but given the situation, that's what they're doing. And it would be my recommendation that we grant C-89 to fund this so that they can pay the obligation there for the second person for the cross training. I ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
Councilor Angelini.
In agreement as well.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-89. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-89, please recognize usual manner. C-89 has been granted by a vote of 9-0. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, order that the sum of $5,500 be made to the Health Department clerk account and the same to be transferred from the collective bargaining account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there anything further? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please indicate by saying yay. Yay. Anyone opposed? The order is adopted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to legal affairs, and is the chairman ready to report on 45-24?
Yeah, Mr. President, thank you. 45-24, Montechusett Regional Planning Commission. Glenn Eaton, Executive Director.
requests that the following petition to amend the Leominster zoning ordinance and zoning map to create an MBTA multifamily overlay district, and requests that you place it on the city council agenda, including with this letter, are proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance and a map depicting the location of the proposed overlay district. As previously agreed, the city of Leominster will be responsible for the public notifications required for this zoning amendment. The MRPC began working with Leominster's Housing Committee in November of 2023 to design a district that would meet the requirements of Section 3A of Chapter 40A while protecting and promoting the city's sound development. After investigating multiple areas throughout Leominster and considering various configurations, the committee and the staff of the MRPC agreed that this proposal will meet the requirements of the law in a manner best suited to the unique conditions of North Leominster neighborhood. I also have a letter from Montechusett Regional Planning Commission Executive Director Glenn Eaton, dated June 11th, 2024, to Mark Bedanza, President, Leominster City Council, 25 West Street, City Hall, Leominster, Massachusetts. Dear Mr. Bedanza, the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission requests permission to withdraw without prejudice the petition submitted on April 9, 2024, to amend the Leominster zoning ordinance and map in accordance with the MBTA Communities Act. The MRPC is working to develop an alternate overlay district based on the feedback received to date on our previous submittal. We look forward to submitting an alternative petition with an improved district for your consideration in the coming weeks. Sincerely, Glenn P. Eaton, Executive Director, Montechusett Regional Planning Commission. Mr. Chairman, it would be my recommendation that we grant this petition leave to withdraw, and I would ask you to check with members of my committee.
I assume without prejudice, correct?
Without prejudice.
All right. Councilor Tossi
Yes, I agree.
and Councilor Pauline Cormier. All right, so the recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee is to give 45-24 leave to withdraw without prejudice. Is there any discussion on their recommendation? Councilor Frida.
But did we get a legal opinion as to whether the chairman had the authority to cancel a posted legal notice public hearing? The way I understood how this works, and what we've always done in the past with public hearings, that should have been open tonight and closed. And then we should have voted on this to give it leave to withdraw. It was advertised. We voted to give it further time at the last meeting. I don't believe that there was an authority by one counselor when we voted as a council to do the public hearing. We would have to vote to cancel that public hearing. I just think legally we're taking some chances sometime on how we do these things. I don't think there's an authority for none of us as one person to be able to do it.
I did raise that with Ms. Huffman before it was done, and she indicated that it was appropriate to do that you could do that.
Who said that?
Caitlin Huffman.
So we're trusting the clerk for that decision?
Yeah, as we do some procedural matters.
I question that, quite honestly.
Well, I mean, you can request a legal opinion if you want. I mean, there's a precedent here. Any member of the council can request an opinion. But I did check with her because I was curious, and she indicated it was appropriate to me.
It just, if you think about it, just logically, it makes sense. We have to vote to establish a public hearing. We would have to vote to cancel the public hearing. And you would cancel the public hearing because people could have still come tonight and had comments. Doesn't mean that they can't still comment because it was published. a legal publication.
Well, I guess there's a tremendous expense because of the requirements for the advertising in this particular type of
Yeah.
petition.
But
So
legally correct.
yes, you're right, but that's why I checked. And the idea was to avoid that expense, especially on a petition that was ultimately going to be withdrawn. So that was, I didn't do it.
Disagree with the clerk on that.
All
I
right.
think if there was a question, we should have asked the city.
Well, collectively, myself and the clerk made a judgment. If you want to ask for a legal opinion, you're certainly entitled to do that. Any other discussion on the committee's request to withdraw without prejudice 45-24? Seeing none, all those in favor of giving 45-24 leave to withdraw without prejudice, please indicate in the usual manner by a vote of 8-1. Oh, you opposed?
8-1.
Okay. 45-24 has been given leave to withdraw without prejudice. Moving on to C93.
Mr. President, C93. Dean J. Mazzarola, Mayor, requests that the council vote to amend Chapter 20, Article 3, Section 20-18 of the Leominster City Ordinance as follows. Chapter 20, Article 3, Section 20-18 of the revised ordinances entitled Cash Security by deleting the provision in its entirety and inserting the following in its place. No person shall install any utility or other private connection into any public utility, including water and sewer connections and or renewals, drainage, drilling, and all other types of excavation unless such person has delivered to the city a cash security in the sum of $15,000 for the faithful performance of such work he may execute, and to make good any defects in material or workmanship which may appear in the utility trench on account of work done by said insured contractor, and to remunerate the city and any person connected to such work for loss or damages incurred in consequences of any act done under any permit granted such contractor. The $15,000 cash security will be held for the 2-year guarantee period. The 2 years after completion of the last permit work, a permittee can request the Department of Public Works for release of the security. If all permit obligations have been met, the security will be returned in its entirety with interest. Mr. President, as you know, we conducted a public hearing on this early this evening. The DPW has sent in a referral in support of C93, and it would be my recommendation that we grant C93, and I would ask you to please poll members of my committee.
Very well. Councilor Tossi
I agree.
and Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant C-93. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-93, please recognize the usual manner. C-93 has been granted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to 47-24.
47-24. Greg Robichaud, Sergeant, Leominster Police Department, requests to amend Chapter 13 of the revised ordinance entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic. Chapter 13, Section 13-66.2 of the revised ordinance entitled 1/2 hour parking zones established is hereby amended by inserting the following text. C. 1/2 hour parking is hereby established for 6 vehicles in the municipal parking area, 24 Church Street between City Hall and the Gallagher Building, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. in unrestricted parking during weekends and holidays. Once again, we conducted a public hearing earlier this evening. This petition would obviously create significantly more short-term parking than what's available historically over between City Hall and the Gallagher Building. And it would be my recommendation to grant 47-24, and I would ask you to poll members of my committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilor Tossi
I agree.
and Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant 47-24. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting 47-24, please recognize the usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, 47-24 has been granted. Moving on to the Ways and Means Committee, starting with C90.
Thank you, Mr. President. C90, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that Christian Ledger be exempt from the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 268.A, Section 20B, Conflict of Interest. This was given regular course on our last meeting. I did receive a letter from the mayor's office. As we know, these come up every year at the end of the school year of individuals who are employed by the city, either through the school department or another one, or a different department, in order to allow them the opportunity to work for the summer in different programs. In the case of C90, the mayor respectfully requests Kristen Ledger be exempt from those provisions. Ms. Ledger is currently employed by the City of Leominster School Department as a teacher and will be taking a position at the Leominster Recreation Department as a summer program counselor. It'd be my position, Mr. President, to grant this exemption, and I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Arndinger.
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to grant C-90. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-90, please recognize the usual manner. By a vote of 9-0, C-90 has been granted. Moving on to C-91.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that Brittany Testa be exempt from the provisions of the Mass General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20B, Conflict of Interest. Again, we received a similar letter from the mayor's office. Ms. Testa is currently employed by the City of Leominster School Department as a teacher and will be taking a position at the Leominster Recreation Department as a summer program counselor. Be my position to grant this exemption, and I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Very well. Councilor David Cormier,
I agree.
Councilor Arndinger.
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to grant C-91. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-91, please recognize the usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, C-91 has been granted. Moving on to C-92.
Thank you, Mr. President. C-92, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that Lori Richard be exempt from the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20B, Conflict of Interest. As with our past two petitioners, Ms. Richard is currently employed by the City of Leominster School Department as a teacher and will be taking a position at the Leominster Recreation Department as a summer program counselor. Again, I'd ask you to check with members of my committee to grant this exemption.
I might be dreaming, but is this the one we got a letter on that she wanted to withdraw it?
Oh,
She doesn't work for Leominster School Department. She works at.
Oh,
We have to withdraw.
right here. Yeah, right here.
All right, then I will, some
Believe that's
reason
it.
I don't have that in mind. So I will amend my recommendation and request that we dismiss this.
let's give it leave to withdraw without
To withdraw
prejudice.
without prejudice. Thank you.
All right, and I'm going to assume that your committee, Councilor David Cormier, you're okay with that?
Yes, I agree.
And Councilor Arndinger?
I agree.
So you heard the unanimous recommendation of Ways and Means to give C-92 leave to withdraw without prejudice. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of giving C-92 leave to withdraw without prejudice, please recognize the usual manner. C-92 has been given leave to withdraw without prejudice by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to new business, we have readings of a couple of ordinances, starting off with 44-24.
Thank you, Mr. President. 44, formerly 44-24. This is the first reading of an ordinance. City of Leominster, in the year 2024, an ordinance, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Leominster as follows. Amending Chapter 22 of the revised ordinances entitled Zoning. Section 22-4 of the revised ordinances entitled Definitions is hereby amended by adding the following text in alphabetical order. Short-term rental or rentals. The use of a residential unit for residential occupancy by a person or persons for a period fewer than 31 consecutive calendar days for a fee. A short-term rental may or may not be arranged through a booking agent. Mr. President, it would be my recommendation that we adopt the first reading of the ordinance, and I would ask you to poll members of my committee.
Councilor Tossy
I agree.
and Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to adopt the first reading of the ordinance. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Frida?
Discussion, but I want to read something that I received today, actually. It was from someone whose friend was apparently, I'm just going to read that they were booked through an Airbnb to come from June 18th to July 1st. On 4/23, they were notified by Airbnb that the city of Leominster was prohibiting rentals for under 21 days. So Airbnb had to delist their property and return all money paid. They asked if there were other places they could stay in Leominster and were told not until the city rescinds the ordinance. So they ended up with a short-term rental in Acton. And the comments that were made is that they would not support any restaurants or anything else in the city of Leominster. They've been doing this for 5 years. And apparently they were not able to, the property's in Ward 1. I'm not going to say where it is, but it's in Ward 1. And I just, whether there's more than that, I don't know, but I'm not quite sure how Airbnb would notify these people that we had an ordinance in place when it's the first reading of the ordinance is tonight. It's not even an ordinance yet. So whether they're monitoring or somebody's talking with them, I don't know how they're getting that kind of information. But just wanted to point that out, that was something I got today.
Councilor Angelini?
I just want to point out that I think Airbnb is incorrect. The ordinance, this ordinance at least, states that it's fewer than 31 days. I think in their letter they said 21.
21.
Yeah, so their information is inaccurate irregardless. So anyway, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, this vote will be by roll call vote, starting with David Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger.
Yay.
Councilor Angelini.
Yay.
Councilor Tossy.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Nay.
Councilor Robbins.
Hey.
Councilor Frida.
Nay.
I shall be recorded as yay by a vote of 6-3. The first reading is adopted. Moving on to second reading of an ordinance, formerly 46-24.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is indeed the second reading of an ordinance. City of Leominster in the year 2024, an ordinance be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Leominster as follows, amending Chapter 13 of the revised ordinances entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic. Chapter 13, Section 13-34 of the revised ordinances entitled No Parking on Certain Streets is hereby amended by deleting the following text. Church Street West Side from Miriam Avenue South for 600 feet to the intersection of West Street. Chapter 13, Section 13-34 of the revised ordinances entitled No Parking on Certain Streets is hereby further amended by inserting the following text. Church Street West Side from Miriam Avenue South for 136 feet. Church Street West Side from 248 feet south of Miriam Avenue, ending at the intersection of Church Street and West Street. Mr. President, it would be my recommendation that we adopt the second reading of this ordinance, and I would ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Tossy.
I agree.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant the second reading of the ordinance formerly 46-24. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, this will be by roll call. Councilor David Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger.
Yay.
Councilor Angelini.
Yay.
Councilor Tossy.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Robbins.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
And I shall be recorded as yay. The second reading of the ordinance is adopted by a vote of 9-0. Anybody have anything on the community calendar? Council Frida.
Just to take a minute to congratulate Bill Brady and his restaurant and his wife, and actually his employees, as he mentioned in a news article about being named Restaurateur of the Year. It's quite an honor, and I guess they were honored last week at Gillette Stadium by the Mass Restaurant Association. So I just wanted to point that out, that we're fortunate to have a restaurant like that in our community.
Thank you, Councilor. Anybody else for the community calendar? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Do we have any updates on the clerk?
I don't have anything to, all I can tell you is that formally I have recused myself from that process. I did not participate in Ways and Means Committee.
Do we have,
I'd be happy to give just a brief update.
Okay.
If I could. The application process was long. I can tell you that we did have a subcommittee hearing meeting last Friday. We went into executive session. We reviewed we did a cursory review of all the applications. We came up with a list of questions, proposals. I have asked Wendy Hurley of Human Resources to be at our next meeting. I expect, and I'm hoping to schedule the next subcommittee meeting for next week, where we hope to do a deeper dive into the applications, finish up what we want to do as far as questions, making sure we're all on the same path, and decide what, as far as we want to go as far as interviews and scheduling that. So our next meeting, again, is subcommittee meeting. I expect that we will go into executive session again because of the nature of the information that we'll be sharing that evening. And it's the hope that once the next subcommittee meeting is completed, that we will be able to go in and schedule some interviews and get that done.
was that subcommittee meeting posted?
It was.
Where was the meeting held?
It was in room 10 at City Hall, Friday evening at 4:15.
I didn't see anything on, because I've been watching for it. I didn't see anything.
Yep, it was posted. Everyone else I know received notice, so,
Everybody else knew?
No, I did not. I didn't receive notice.
well, I will make sure that the next one gets out to you, but it was posted, so.
When, yeah.
Appeals. City of Leominster.
It was on the website. I looked on the website. I didn't go in City Hall. I was on a website.
Did you
Okay,
want to know?
thank you.
37.
Are you all set, Councilor?
I will note that there were a total of 37 applications we received and we reviewed.
I have a question. No, it's not really about this, but it's just more in general about subcommittee meetings that are scheduled. I mean, we used to get copies of the, the posting, either emailed or, hard copies. So I don't know why. I mean, I rarely go into City Hall. I mean, I go in occasionally. Some weeks I go in a lot, some weeks I don't. So I wouldn't necessarily see a posting. But in the past, we've always been notified about a legal affairs subcommittee meeting, a finance subcommittee meeting, and we always get the agenda, whatever's
Was it emailed?
posted.
He was emailed to the subcommittee, the Ways and Means subcommittee, but posted on the city council.
All right. Well, I would think in the future you'd want to email everybody.
All subcommittee meetings should be shared with the full council.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree.
All right.
Thank you for the update. 37
37
applications. Good.
Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. President.
Anything else on the community calendar? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
That motion.
Councilor David Cormier, seconded. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr, all in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.